Probably the most popular tarot cards is the Rider-Waite tarot cards. But there are many different tarot cards around, but these are the most popular ones. But do they work? What's their story? Where did they come from? Well, stay tuned and I'll tell you more. Welcome back to the Brac Shop, where we look at the paranormal, the bizarre, the strange, and the spiritual. Because where there's darkness, there's also light. And I'm Tom from the shop. Now, have you ever had your cards read, as in the tarot cards? What were they like? Were they spot on, or were they way off? Or were they sort of like in the middle? Well, I think a lot of it depends on the reader. And the cards are basically there to help the reader. And you can get some readers who are clairvoyant and they get help through the cards to direct them. Some of them don't need them. Maybe that's the best way they operate without cards. And some operate better with cards to enhance them. But it all depends on the reader. Now, the most popular tarot deck is the Rider-Waite tarot cards. Don't know if you can see all the pictures there, but they've got classic pictures, although there are so many different tarot decks now, but it really depends on the reader, on what they're comfortable with. And some tarot decks will be painted differently, drawn differently, and it will create different energies for the reader. Now, if you like this episode, don't forget, click the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and click the bell, because that way, if you're subscribed, it will also bring up the videos, so you can watch it when I release them. Now, the tarot deck. No one really knows where they came from. These are, as I said, most popular decks, the Rider-Waite tarot deck. And, well, looking at them, you'd think they've been around for centuries. But they've only been around since 1909. But the tarot has been around for centuries. Now, where did they come from? No one really knows for sure. Now, the first record of the tarot was in 1442 in the court of Ferrara in northern Italy. Since that was the first record, it was most probable that they were already in circulation in Europe a few decades prior to that. But back then, they were mainly used as playing cards, and mainly by the nobles and the aristocracy. So where did they come from? Now, no one really knows for sure, but there's been talks that they came from China and then passed down through the Arabs into Italy. There's also thoughts that they're Egyptian, and they've got esoteric links to the Book of Thoth, and they've got esoteric links to the Kabbalah, the Indian Tantra, and the I Ching. And back then, the most popular deck was the Marseillaise deck, made in the south of France, from Marseille, basically. Now, the church didn't approve of these, because mainly, don't forget, they were mainly card games, and not used for fortune telling yet, but they were a form of gambling, which wasn't approved by the church. So it was banned. And so anyone found with the tarot cards, they were confiscated and destroyed. And so the tarot cards, you could say, went underground. It was only in secret. And now in the mid-1700s, That's when we see the cards again, and this time they're used for fortune telling. Now, in the late 1770s, there was a clergyman, Antoine Court de Gébelin, who met a group of travelers, and they were playing the tarot and fortune telling. He ended up writing a book linking the tarot to esoteric influences. And from the travelers, he learnt they were based on the Egyptian mystic book, the Book of Thoth, which was an ancient book of magic. Now we come to the 20th century, and that's where we find A.E Waites, Arthur Edward Waites. Now, he was involved with the occult quite a bit. He was born in America, but he had a British mother, so he moved back to the United Kingdom when his father passed away, and that's where he grew up. He was a poet and a writer, but he was also associated with the occult. And he was also a member of the outer order of the Hemanic order of the Golden Dawn. However, due to internal disagreements, that finally they disbanded and broke up into different sectors in 1914. And in 1915, he started the Fellowship of the Rosy Cross. In fact, Arthur Edward Waite was one of the first people to put together the history of Western occultism. And he commissioned Pamela Colman Smith to draw the pictures of his series of tarot cards. She got paid a small fee. In fact, originally they were also known as the Rider-Waite Smith tarot cards. Smith because of Pamela Colman Wright, who drew the pictures. Quite nice pictures. Waites because they were devised by Arthur Edward Waites, and Rider because they were actually published, distributed by the Rider Printing Company. Now, what made these cards so popular was their pictures. They're filled with detail and abundant symbolisms, based on some of the older decks, but filled with so much detail it was easier to interpret. Now, the cards, they're actually broken up into two groups. You've got the major arcana and the minor arcana. And the major arcana are the picture cards. 22 cards make up the major arcana. They're the main cards with pictures, and there's stories dealt into these pictures. The minor arcana consists of 56 cards, and they consist of 4 suits, comprising of 14 cards each. Now, each suite acquired a meaning. Now, wands represented the peasants, meaning work and enterprise. Coins, which became the Pentacles, represented the merchants, meaning business and finance and careers. Cups represented the church, and today refers more to the spiritual matters and love relationships. And swords, they referred to the military and represents tensions and conflicts and difficulties that you could have. And the minor arcana have actually developed to become our regular playing cards. Now, with the tarot, some say they are basically hieroglyphic images to be read like stories, to be four in certain patterns to tell a story. And with these pictures, they actually describe the cards and their meanings a lot easier than what used to be around with their pictures. In fact, some of them are almost childlike to make it so simple to get the meaning and to be able to interpret them. And as I said, a lot of it depends on the reader. Now, there are different ways to read the cards. Many different types of spreads. And this is what we call the layout of the cards. And again, it depends on the reader, on what works best with the reader on interpreting the cards. Probably the most popular is the 3-card spread. And that would basically be telling the past, the present, and the future. It's a very quick, simple way to get answers, and different variations on that as well, and different subjects and topics, like whether it being love, relationships, finance, work, career, and as well as the past, present, and future. You can also look at the current situation, obstacle, and advice. Or you could use it as a situation, the action, and then the outcome. And different variations on that as well. And that is the basic 3-card spread. But there are so many different spreads, and probably the most popular one is the Celtic spread, or actually the Celtic cross spread. And this represents the present, the challenge, the past, the future, above, below, the advice, the external influence. Actually, it won't fit, so I'll just move it down a bit. We have hope or fears, and we have the outcome. And all of this should be actually in a straight line, but I'm running out of space there. And if you want to elaborate on the outcome, you can draw 3 more cards. So there we have it, the Celtic cross spread. But there are so many different types, and again, it basically to suit the reader. In fact, there's a spread where you use all 78 cards and you lay them all out on the table, and that's the Wheel of Destiny. But do they work? Some people will swear by them, and other people, well, maybe they're just putting things together to create an outcome. Actually, that's basically what the tarot is. But there is some mysticism to them. People have said, like readers have said, they've done a whole reading, and yet they could do it again. And for some reason, they would get a very similar reading again. Maybe different cards will come up, but the meanings will be very similar. So in a way, it's a bit strange in that sense. But as some people have said, again, it's not the cards, it's the reader that actually acts through the cards. So what do you think? Have you had any experience with readings from the tarot cards? If you have, write your comments below and let me know. Were they spot on? Did they work? Or were they really way off and had nothing to do with it? Personally, with my experiences, I've had some strange occurrences. I remember years ago, 2 different tarot readings I went to. And this is when I was living away from home, actually in a different city. And I went home and I picked up some tapes that I had, and I was listening to them on the trip back down. And they were from 2 different readings from 2 different periods. And I remember the reader was saying, I can see the number 10. It might be 10 days, 10 months, but there will be a great big change happening to me. I thought, okay. Very interesting, that 10. I was reading to the second reading that was taken quite a different period, not near that first reading. And she said, in 3 months' time, you're going to have a great big change happen. And I looked at the period of when I had those readings. The first one was 10 months when this big change happened. The second reading was actually 3 months before the big change happening. And that big change was actually, and this is, I completely forgot about the readings by then, it's when I made the decision to change cities. And that was the big change. So 2 different readings pinpointing the precise time that I would have this big change. Coincidence, or what do you think? Very interesting. Yeah, so if you have any experiences or results from your reading, yeah, put them in the comments and let me know and see what you think. But you can use any sort of tarot deck. It's just that the Rider-Waite tarot deck is probably the most popular and most recognizable one. Interesting that the Fool came up when I split the deck apart. And the Fool is supposed to represent you, man, on his quest through life. Yes, he's looking for, well, he's looking back actually, unbeknown to what's ahead of him. So he's sort of like leaving his past behind and heading off into an unknown future. Big excitement because he's actually almost looking like he's going to step off a cliff. But that's the Rider-Waite tarot deck. Very popular, and it's always a good one for beginners to start with as well. And when you get more experience, you can also branch out into the other type of decks. And some readers will have quite a few different decks because they'll have different energies. They'll get different energies from them, which would be sometimes more appropriate for a particular reading. So that's, in a nutshell, on the Rider-Waite tarot deck and tarot readings as well. I may do another episode where I get more in depth to the cards and their meanings, but this is just a touch on the tarot. Now, if you have found this episode interesting, please press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and press the bell, because if you don't press the bell, you may not be notified when I do release a video. It's only when you press the bell that YouTube will actually put the video in front of you. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Good positive vibes, good readings if you do take a tarot reading. And until next time, stay well and happy.